Today we're going to talk about setting healthy boundaries in dating as a Christian. I know the word boundaries may feel overdone or somewhat restrictive, but the truth is that boundaries don't limit love, it protects it. So what are boundaries anyway? Like, boundaries are a way to honor God, to honor ourselves, and to honor the person that we're dating. It's kind of like having guardrails. Think about it in terms of like the motorway, right? It's like you've got this big stretch of road, but you have these guardrails on the side that just help to protect you so that you know what you're doing, you know where you're meant to be, and there's no danger that you're going to go outside of the lines. And that's kind of how I see boundaries. Boundaries also help us navigate our, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical intimacy in alignment with our faith and in alignment with how God intended these things to be and the balance for us to have in our lives, even at different parts of our lives and different stages, such as dating and engagement and marriage. And today we're going to talk about 3 key areas of boundaries that we need to be aware of in our dating life. Number 1 is emotional boundaries. It is so easy for us to get too attached too quickly. We get very excited, and that's not a bad thing. It's a natural desire that when you meet someone you like, you're like, oh my gosh, I've met my person. I want to tell them everything. I want to reveal everything about my life and to share all the things that have happened to me, and I want to know everything about them. But it is important to pace ourselves because we have this natural desire to just like cling on to another person. But we do need to have that discernment muscle to be able to actually see, is this person aligned on our faith? Is this person aligned in our values? Do they have a shared vision? And when we cling too much emotionally, that can be really blinding because all of a sudden you're like, this is my person, I've met them, this is it, we're getting married. How does their surname sound with my first name? And it can just all spiral very quickly. And you can have one really good date and then you're planning your engagement, you're planning your wedding in your mind, and it's like, whoa there. You need to be able to be detached to the outcome. Detachment to the outcome really helps you to see the present because you're not there thinking, oh my gosh, great first date, we're getting married in 7 months. You're more thinking, okay, that was a really good first date. I'd love to go on a second, and how could that happen? How can we help to build and grow our friendship and discern this relationship? And really, in terms of time, the only time that exists is now. So there's no point living in an imagined future or worrying about the past or anything. You just have to be in the present. So this concept of detachment to outcome has been so helpful for me because I definitely let my imagination run wild. While when it's just like, okay, I can just be and be chill and enjoy the present moment, that just helps you to live day by day. But we know it is so easy to become emotionally tangled very quickly. Of course, you want to share deeply, you want to be authentic, you want to be genuine, but don't rush emotional intimacy before, trust and commitment have actually been established. And then number 2 is physical boundaries. Do check out my video where I explain more and go deeper into this topic as to really why God designed it this way. It's so important to have a very clear cut, almost black and white stance on physical boundaries before you get into a relationship. Because the thing is that when your emotions and you start to like someone, it starts becoming very difficult to see the line because it's like, oh, but I love this person. Oh, but I'm intending to marry this person. Oh, but I trust and like them so much. So it's really good to have that conversation quite early on, and also just to know it yourself, to know I am saving myself for marriage, and the reason I'm doing that is X, Y, and Z. I think it's important to understand the reason behind your conviction. And I think when we understand the absolute beauty of sex within marriage and how God designed it, and that incredible entire gift of self to another person, to your spouse, then all of a sudden it's like, yes, that makes sense that this is so special, it's so sacred, and God designed it amazingly. God designed sex. So of course, God wants us to have, wonderful sex lives, but within marriage, because that is the boundary and that is the safe space to have it, where you can really genuinely be a gift of self to another person. So when it comes to physical boundaries, you have to have guidelines, and you have to also know each other's limits, because it might be that one person is totally fine snuggling on the sofa watching a movie, and another person, it arouses them too much and then puts them into a near occasion of sin. It might cause them to lust. It could cause you both to enter into a deeper physical intimacy than either of you wanted. So you want really clear guidelines that honor each other, but also that honor God and God's design for marriage and sex. Most importantly, having these set guidelines or these standards for each other, it's gonna help you guys stay accountable. And do date in community. It's good to have married couples, especially ones who are recently married, to be able to bounce off these ideas, because everyone struggles with this. Chastity is a difficult thing. It's a natural desire to want to be physically intimate with the person that you are falling in love with, but I think having those clear guidelines, very early on will just help you both to take responsibility, ownership, and to hold each other accountable. Don't use physical affection to build emotional connection. I'm gonna say that one again. Don't use physical affection to build emotional connection. Now, this is something a lot of us have fallen for. You like someone, you go on a few dates, all of a sudden you're holding hands, then you're snuggling, then you're cuddling. And that kind of physical intimacy, scientifically, is of course meant to help you guys bond, right? It's like an increase in oxytocin, serotonin, all of these happy hormones like dopamine. And then suddenly you're building your connection, you're building this intimacy on the physicality rather than the friendship and the emotional connection. So don't skip that part, don't skip the foundational parts, because if you go too quickly into the physical, that very quickly blurs the line and it makes you feel close to that person, because as I said, biologically, you are getting close to that person. You're getting all these hormones that are saying to your body, this is my person, attach, attach, attach. But you've ignored and skipped the other stages. So be mindful of that. And then the last one I want to talk about is spiritual boundaries. I think it's really easy for us as Christians to over spiritualize our dating life. And while it's so beautiful to pray together with the person that you're dating, we also need to see that our spiritual life, our interior life, is very, very intimate to ourselves, to us and God. And you want to be able to integrate that into your dating life during a time when it's going to strengthen your relationship rather than blur the lines. Because again, if you bring in the spiritual, it can start feeling really intimate, and that can be confusing again for when you're trying to discern if this person on a very kind of, reason-led and logical level is a good match for you. You need to have some boundaries to see when you start integrating more of that spirituality into your dating life, because as I said, there is nothing more dreamy than praying with the person that you love, but you just don't want to rush into that. You don't want to make God almost an accessory to your dating life. You want him to be the center, but not like a prop. It's a tricky one because of course you yourself, you want to be praying constantly, pray without ceasing throughout this dating process to see what wisdom God will give you. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be praying only with your partner, because you need to maintain that one-on-one relationship with you and God. So I hope this has been somewhat encouraging, because I know that boundaries can seem like a very confusing concept, and it's something that I'm trying to integrate into a lot of my life, into my whole life, to be honest, my familial relationships, my work relations, and dating. And it's a way to just really maintain your own inherent value and worth in God, and knowing that regardless of your relationship status, regardless of how another person treats you, and the standard that God has set for us as Christians to treat each other well, to love our neighbor, to respect and to reverence each other, and to really see that we're all made in the image of likeness of God. And ultimately, boundaries are not about saying no to love. They're about saying yes to healthy, God-honoring relationships. And one of my favorite stories is about the Chinese bamboo seed. So the Chinese bamboo seed, and don't quote me because scientifically I'm probably going to get this somewhat wrong, but it's one of those which takes so long to build a foundational system under the soil. So for years you won't see any growth from the Chinese bamboo seed, but what it's doing is it's actually creating this amazing foundation, and then eventually it grows at one of the fastest pace of any plant ever, because it has built that foundation. And I like to think of that when it comes to our love lives, that really we need to be focusing on that foundation, and everything else will follow so seamlessly and so quickly because of that. So don't skip it, and embrace boundaries. It's not a bad word. It's a good thing to understand and to really see how it helps us to be closer to God and closer to who God has designed us to be. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one, and please don't forget to subscribe to Salt for more Christian dating content surrounding theology and understanding how we can date in this modern world today in a way that honors God and honors each other. Okay, God bless. Bye.